Hi, I'm Brian Fraser, and I'm the lead provocateur of a company called Jazz Think. We use the workings, wisdoms, and wit of jazz to talk about conversations, about how you can improve your impact, improve your teamwork, improve your organization, improve your leadership through using jazz as a model. Let me tell you about a conversation, one of the most important conversations that I ever had in my life. I'd been Dean of the Presbyterian College at University of British Columbia for about a year. Now, we started to come up with this idea of building a housing complex. We had 3.2 acres at the heart of the UBC campus. There was nothing on it really other than this little 40-room dorm. And we had already set up a partnership with Vancouver School of Theology, and we needed to fund that partnership. So how are we going to do it? Well, it turns out that we had a 999-year lease on this property, 3.2 acres, heart of the UBC campus, for $1 a year. So we decided, what could we do with that property? Well, the university needed student housing. And so we decided that what we would do is build a housing complex. $6.5 million was kind of the rough idea that we had of what the cost was. Now, the treasurer of the board was this wonderful guy by the name of Keith Brown. Keith had been a trust officer with Canada Dominion Trust, TD Trust, for 40 years. He was H.R. Macmillan's personal trust officer, so he knew what he was doing. I phoned him up one day and I said, Keith, I've got this idea. He said, oh, let's go to lunch. So off he took me to the Vancouver Club for lunch, and I laid out this idea of this housing complex at the heart of the UBC campus. And he sat back and said, over my dead body. Now, there's a conversation starter. Stopper. I don't know how I came up with this idea, but essentially what I said was, so what would it take for you to live through this? And Keith said, that's a very good question. I'll get back to you. So we finished lunch. Next day, comes into my office, puts a list of 10 questions on my desk. He said, answer those questions and we'll talk again. So my colleague and I worked for about 3 weeks to try and answer all of these questions. We figured we got good answers, maybe to 8 of them. 2 of them completely befuddled us. So phoned Keith up, said, fine, I'll come in, we'll have coffee, go over your answers. So Helen and I sat down with Keith, went over the answers, said, here are the 8, here's our answers to those. The other 2 completely baffle us, haven't got any answers to those. He said, well, that's pretty good. Now you've got my unqualified support. And I said, what? You've got my unqualified support. I said, what changed? He said, look, by answering those questions, you took it from a chance to a risk. He said, I won't take a chance with the assets of St. Andrew's Hall, but I will take a risk in order to enhance the service that the hall can render to the university, to the community, to the church. And those questions were designed to get you to think that stuff through. So we've now got plan B, C, and D. Now, by the time we finished the project 3 years later, we were into plan M or N or something like that. But what happened was that each of those adaptations of the plan took place because we had conversations with each other. It's all about the conversations. Now, the most common form of jazz in human experience is conversation. You've got structure, vocabulary, and grammar, but every time you use it, you improvise around it. You use different words. You use a different tone of voice. You use a different rhythm. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, but you're constantly improvising. So all of you are jazz musicians. Every time you open your mouth to have a conversation, you're playing jazz. So if you were to manage the sound and substance of your voice in a conversation, the way jazz musicians manage the sound and substance of their instruments in a performance, what difference would it make to the quality of community you're generating one conversation after another? That's the essence of Jazz Think. Love to be able to play with you.